Hello, my name is Cassandra Thayer, and tonight I'm going to be presenting on an analysis of soil and vegetation health of Plymouth, Massachusetts. This analysis was chosen as a part of my capstone project for the implementation of food forests as a revitalization effort for an underutilized park in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So why food forests? Food forests are a perennial garden idea that allow an area to provide harvestable food for communities season after season. Generally, they are established as a part of civic agriculture, meaning agriculture in a city or municipal setting. Civic agriculture can take form as either community gardens, rooftop gardens, or in this case, a food forest. They can take many other forms as well. Generally, food forests are less maintenance than the alternative options, as they are perennial plants, meaning that they will come back year after year, versus having to establish new plantings season after season, such as tomatoes, squashes, things like that. Those are all annual plantings. Perennial planting examples would be fruit trees like apple trees, nut trees, blueberry plants, grapes, raspberries, strawberries, things like that. In this case study, Allerton Park is an underutilized area of Plymouth that would benefit from a revitalization. Additionally, adding civic agriculture practices within Plymouth, or any other community for that matter, would help to combat food insecurity, meaning homes that don't necessarily know when they're going to have food on the table, or just can't feed themselves as much as they really should. For this study, I wanted to look at what the soil quality was for the area so that I would know approximately what I would be working with when the plants are established. Specifically, I looked at moisture retention and if the soil would potentially need to be amended prior to planting. Determining this data ahead of time is very important because it is more difficult to establish proper soil quality after the plantings have occurred than before they do. Initially, I worked with the MassGIS free data, which provided me with the Surgo certified soil estimates of soil drainage. The arrow you see is pointing to the specific park that I will be working with, which is located in the downtown area of Plymouth. As you can see, the soil surrounding a large portion of the park is tan in color, or rather represented by tan, indicating that the soil there is excessively drained. Since the soil in the park on appearance is very sandy, it didn't really come much of a surprise that the soil would drain quickly and have little moisture retention. In fact, I actually did a real-life soil analysis for part of my capstone, and the data that we're looking at here is exactly that. It's very sandy, little moisture control, little nutrients and whatnot. And while all this can be beneficial for some plants, it can challenge others and stunt their growth. So care will need to be taken to ensure that each plant is receiving the recommended soil quality during the planting process. Additionally, I looked at the Landsat imaging of the area surrounding the park. This was to determine what the overall vegetation health is of the area and how this has changed over time. The Landsat imaging was taken at 30 meters, which admittedly provided a very blurry image, but it was clear enough to determine what the estimated health of the vegetation is. By looking at this data, we can see how other plants in the area are surviving and if there would be any cause for concern with choosing this location for the food forest. Both the Landsat 7 and Landsat 8 were looked at to determine if any changes over the years had happened in between. Here we can see the Landsat 7 on the upper left and the Landsat 8 image in the upper right. While there does appear to be an overall health decline in the Landsat 8 image, I suspect that this might be due to whatever the particular summer was like in the year that the image was taken. Both images were taken in July, so there are a few factors that could be contributing to the decrease in healthy vegetation. Additionally, the decline does not appear to be very significant, so I suspect that this is a result of something as simple as a very hot and dry summer. We were also able to look and see what changes may have taken place between the two time frames. This data showed that there have been a lot of construction and changes happening in the downtown area, including clearing of lots of land. The large red blob that you see sort of in the lower right-hand corner of both of the bottom images is actually a large portion of trees that were cleared recently within the past, I would say, 10 years or so. And as again we can see here, the difference between the two images for vegetation health is very slight. With this data, I'm able to feel confident that the overall vegetation health of the area is good enough that implementing harvestable foods in that area should not be an issue at all. So what do we know from this data? We now know that the soil will be excessively drained, which may impact some of our plantings. From my capstone research, I've discovered that while most plants that produce food do not like to be really bogged down in water, if the water is not retained at all, it may cause problems with fruit production. So adding loam to the area will certainly benefit the project and the overall plant health. Additionally, we can see that the plant health in the area, the bigger picture area, is good, which is a great indication that the park's location will serve the project well, creating a beneficial addition to the community. And data sources were MassGIS. We looked at soil health, the open space areas, which helped us to determine exactly where the park was on the map. And then we also used the state boundaries and some of the data, or some of the analysis rather, that way we could better clip the data. We used ArcGIS Pro to analyze all of the data and incorporated Landsat imaging, Landsat 7 and Landsat 8.